It's really, really good to see everyone again. So many very familiar faces, a couple new faces, some of you guys I don't know. But yeah, it's really good to be in a Mennonite church service in English, singing hymns, a cappella. Oh, it's kind of crazy, but yeah, it's good to be here. We're going to engage a little bit here in culture. And I don't know, culture is a little bit like your nose. That's a bad example, but you are very aware of other people's noses. You can see their nose, but you have to kind of like really focus on your nose to be able to see your own nose. Bad example, probably, but culture is a little bit like that. I want to take some time and I want to look at our own culture so that you guys can see some differences of it and the importance of it so that we can engage new cultures as learners. When I say engage, I mean more like engage in general, but also engage with the gospel, right? So we're going to do some of that. We're going to analyze our culture. And by the way, this is going to be super interactive, so I'm going to ask you guys to get up, help me with stuff, a lot of input from you guys. So very important. And then, yeah, also through this time, hopefully look at, the elements of culture even in our life here in Bogota. So we're going to look at the elements of culture. We're going to compare culture, and we're going to compare Colombian culture from where we're from as a little bit of a way, just as an example, but also a way to let you in a little bit of what our life is kind of like or has been like the past year and a half or so. Look at some specific cultural examples, and then end with how the gospel really transcends culture and why that's important. So, in all of this, before we get to this, I want you to think of culture as, and different cultures, as not wrong, but definitely different. Okay, so not wrong, but different. In Bogota, or in Colombia, we have, I don't know how good you can see that up there, that's pretty bright. We have this waterfall. What do you see here? I see beauty, I see rushing white water, the mist kind of coming up. It's like by that cliff. We got some nice green. But there's one thing about this waterfall that's unique. Before you ever see it, you smell it. It stinks. It's nasty. Before you even get there, you smell the stench of it. So on one hand, you have this beautiful thing, and the other hand, it stinks. It's the like the runoff of the Bogota River and a lot of pollution and yeah, it's nasty. And I want us to think of culture a little bit. I want to use this as an example for culture. Every culture has a sense of beauty, the good things, the way God's face, the way God's personality is displayed in this culture. And on the other hand, you have that underlying stench, the sin, the way death and sin enter that culture, and that culture displays the stink, the underlying stink of it. So, I'm going to switch us to basically my whiteboard here. And I want us to list some beauty of our culture. Your culture, little old Mennonite, Holmes County, Ohio. What are some beautiful parts of our culture? Just yell them out, and I'll try to not embarrass myself with my typing skills. Good food. What's that? Community. hard work. Was that wildflowers? Anything else? Okay. It's a pretty good list. Is my pointer working? That's right. Yeah. I agree with that. Good food, my goodness. Well, anyways, since we came back, we've eaten nothing but good food, but some really good pieces here, some really valuable pieces of church, hard community, strong families, really, really valuable pieces, some really beautiful pieces, for sure. Okay, what about depravity? What kind of stinks in our culture? Sorry, one more time. You said depravities? Probably not, but lack of diversity? Ism. Yeah. Ah. Hmm. You said no compassion? Okay. Say that again? You said loud cars? Okay. This is true. We're good at this depravity list, aren't we? Okay. Not a exhaustive list, right? But definitely true. Like that's kind of us, really. Wow. So, yeah, the point is not to make an exhaustive list, and we're going to switch back to the slideshow again. But the point is recognizing it and engaging with it a little bit like that's us. There's actually some bad parts of our culture, but there's also some really good parts. And so thinking of that as looking into other cultures. I'd like to say culture is kind of made up of somewhat of these four components. You could kind of subdivide them, all the stuff, add some stuff, but some ways, values. What is good and desirable? Beliefs, what motivates our actions. Norms, behavioral expectations, and then, of course, language. We're speaking English this morning, so that's nice. We can all understand that for the most part. And yeah, I'd like to talk about these and also make a list for these. And we're going to start with values. Some of these will kind of overlap a little bit, but I'd like to hear from you guys. What are values? Yep. What is good and desirable in our culture? What do we value? We could take some from the list up here, but let's just make a new list. What do we value? Family. Say it again? You said children? Okay. Again, not exhaustive, but a really good list. Things we value. Um, let's skip down here to beliefs then. What motivates our actions? What do we believe that motivates our actions? Mm-hmm. Just go. Yes, I'm saying that right. Mm-hmm. So on earth, is that fair? Okay. All right. Godly heritage definitely motivates our actions. Do scripture. Sometimes traditions motivate our actions. So experience, right? That's very true. Mm-hmm. These are all like great spiritual answers too, but I think we can even dive into like the more practical of we believe each family or each household should provide for themselves. So like we believe, let's just say, providing for families or ourselves. Actually, let's do ourselves. Um, so along with that, I could just. Any more like just like little practical things that we believe? I'm just gonna say, you could maybe like generalize this and say, um, others' opinions matter. I'm in my culture. I can tell I'm connecting with us. Yep, that's very true. Okay. Anything else? Okay. What about norms? What's normal in our culture? So, good family structure, absolutely. Nice homes, you got it. Say that again. Striped lawns. Church? Going to church is normal. Yeah. When I grew up, every Sunday morning, you're in church. It doesn't matter if, well, unless you're really sick and you can't go, you're in church. Even if you're runny nose, you're in church. Not just church, but also Sunday school. Very important. That's normal in our family. Say it again. Lots of possessions. Yes, sometimes. So- What about children? Can we say like at least how many is normal? 4. We're a peculiar people, aren't we? Marriage, hang on one second. Marriage is normal. We say like in general, a lot of people get married by what age? By 25, 4, 20. I don't know. So we'll say 25. I mean, that's pretty common. What was somebody's? I was talking over you. Say it again. Fundraisers? Yes. Almost too much at some points, right? Mm-hmm. Break that down a little bit more and say send your kids to Legacy, but somebody said something else. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we start a lot of businesses, and it's like You don't want to work for this guy? Well, then just go start your own business. Oh, okay. Okay. We could go on and on, but this is us. We've got some really beautiful parts. We have some depravity. We have some values, what we see as important. Some really good things there. We have some beliefs, what motivates our actions. And we have some norms. Like, this is normal in our culture, and I can guarantee you not a lot of other cultures. But it's a pretty cool list. We are a peculiar people. We're different than a lot of people. Can switch back to the slides. So we do that just to recognize kind of that we are different, even though we're us, so we're the same, and we've always been this way, but we're different than a lot of people, and we'll jump into some practicality of it. And in that, you can kind of see how, like, values, beliefs, like, it kind of, as you go deeper and deeper, like up here at the top, you have, there we go, kind of the normals, the outworkings of it, what we do, our language, and then as you get down, you get deeper and deeper into emotional load, deeper and deeper into what motivates stuff. So we're going to start comparing a little bit here. I'm going to switch me back to my computer. There's a website. This is a bit of a country comparison website. We're going to hit about 4 of these. Right now I have Colombia up here, and in a minute I'm going to type in the U.S. up here, and then we'll compare, and we'll have a whole graph, cool thing here. But in Colombia, we'll start over here on my left. This 67 rating is what's known as power distance. This is kind of how Colombia is pretty high on the scale of power distance. They view their authorities, for instance, their government leaders, their pastors at church, are kind of up here, and everybody else is kind of down here. Power distance is them seeing authority and them feeling like, that's great, but I probably will never get there. Like, they're up there, I'm down here, and I actually can't get there. Okay, so Colombia is pretty high in that, and that's a lot how they feel. What do you guys think the U.S. rate is rated at? Give us a number. 10. Okay, I'm just gonna write these down here so we can remember them. 10. Okay. Individualism. Colombia rates at a 13 in individualism. They are not individualistic. Everything they do is together as a group, as a business. I drove somewhere like 3 hours to work on some visa or some paperwork stuff. And they're like, "Did you go by yourself?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just drove there by myself." "Did you come back? You came back in the same day?" I was like, "Yeah, it's just 3 hours." I'm like, "Wow, very independent of you." Okay. But they're very low on the individualistic scale because everything they do is together. You order some food, it's like, "Hey, can I taste your coffee?" "Well, you know what my coffee tastes like." "But yeah, sure." Like, we share everything. Everything's everybody's. So, what do you think the U.S. rates on the scale of individualism? 90. All right, 90. We're going to hit masculinity here. Masculinity is a bit of their competitiveness, so to speak, their how much they have a desire to succeed and work on that. Now, they're pretty high on the masculinity scale, so they are driven to succeed, but they're very communal, so they're driven to succeed as groups. So keep that in mind when we think about this scale. What do you guys think the U.S. is, the masculinity scale? Columbia's at 64. What do we got? 70. All right, I'm going to skip over some of these. End with indulgence. Columbia rates at an 83 on the indulgence scale, meaning stuff like boundaries, personal, whatever. It's like, they'll partake in whatever. This looks a lot like drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever that is. Like, very indulgent. If it's good, if I feel good doing it, I'm going to do it. What do you think the U.S. is on that scale? 90? Okay. Okay. So now we're going to go over here. We're just going to... Here we go. All right. Power distance. We said 10. Definitely lower than Columbia, but we're at a 40. Maybe this looks different in our specific community too, but in general, we're 40. Individualism. Whew. Yep. There we are. We said 90. We're at a 91. So we're very individualistic. It's all about me, and I can, anyways. Masculinity. We're close to the same. We're at a 62, but that's on the individualism. That's coupled with individualism, so we're very about the same as far as competitiveness and success driven, but we're doing it by ourselves and not as part of a group. We said 70, so we were close. And then indulgence, we said 90, and we're actually lower than Columbia. And this would actually probably be a lot of South America. I think Mexico is the highest at like a 90 something. We're actually lower. We're more, or less indulgent. We have more boundaries and so forth. All right, let's switch back to the slides again. Thanks. So, just kind of interesting to look at. Here's a bunch of more things that are just a lot different. And let's just talk a little bit about time versus human interaction. And we're just going to look at some practical things here, and I'm hopefully can tell some stories. And this one here is probably the hardest thing for me to cope with in Columbia. I invited a local guy to play basketball with me, and he had to work at 2, so I said, okay, come at 11, we'll play basketball for like an hour or so, we'll go eat lunch, and then you can be at your work at 2. Okay, 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock came, 11:30, 12 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30. I think he showed up at a little after 1. He's like, okay, here I am, sorry I'm late, here we go. What? This is 2 hours later. But again, we're looking at not wrong, but different. Now, in my mind, sometimes it's very wrong, or it seems wrong. But what they value, we talked about values, what they value is actually different. They value human interaction. What does this look like? Well, when you walk into a room of Colombians, you will go around and give every single person a hug before you sit down. I've given more hugs in Colombia than I ever had in my life. But this is normal. If you don't, that's actually rude, because what they value is me interacting with you. Like, it's not about, do we get it started on time? It's not about if we end the service on time. It's about whether or not we're engaging with each other, because I value you and you value me, and whatever that happens other than that isn't that important, actually. So, whenever you walk in somewhere, you always say, buenos dias, ¿cómo estás? How's everything? How's the family? And before you do that, you can't actually get to anything else. I have a contact that I send teams to sometimes, and she'll message me, hey, Chris, how's it going? How are you? How's Chester? How's the family? Hope everything's going fine. And that's it. And until I reply, hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. We're good. How are you? How's the family? How's everything going at the school? Only then will she tell me what she wants. I know she wants something, but she won't tell me that unless we greet and we value that human interaction. So I'm learning to be later and less on time and stuff like that. Because here, if we are late for a meeting, I feel like I'm not valuing you by valuing your time. That's how I see it here, at least. But it's different. Not wrong, it's different. Directness versus honesty. You'll go somewhere and it's like, I was looking for powdered sugar, and I was like, hey, do you guys have powdered sugar? He's like, oh yeah, it's over in this aisle. So I went over in this aisle. It wasn't there, and asked somebody else, do you have powdered sugar? Oh yeah, it's over in this aisle. So I went over in this aisle. It wasn't there. No, you have to go to the help desk, and they'll help you find the powdered sugar. They didn't have powdered sugar. But what they valued, they didn't want to be rude to my face and tell me, no, you got it. What they valued is me and not whether or not I found the powdered sugar. It's different. Like you get, and if you're not aware of this, it's just like, you guys are terrible. But no, it's what they value, right? It's different. Sometimes a lot of words to get to the point. Sometimes they'll straight up tell you no, but a lot of times it'll be a lot of just save face. Talked about this a little bit of independence versus community. You ask, hey, where's this store? He's like, okay, come with me, I'll show you. We'll go there together. It's not like, oh, get out your maps and I'll show you, go by yourself. No, we'll go together. We'll share our food. It's part of a community. And again, it's what they value. Independence versus community. We talked about that. That's what I was going for. Importance of appearance. The way you do things is important. You don't throw your phone at anybody. Hey, can I see your picture? No, you get up and hand it to them. It's very important. We know a little bit about the importance of appearance, being that we're Mennonites and stuff, but this is important. Like my friend, poor friend from the south of the city is the poor part. He got a new job, and a couple weeks later he showed up with new basketball shoes. He's like, hey, look at my shoes. Like, look. He's like, I make enough money, I can buy 3 or 5 sets of shoes a year with how much I make. Like, well, don't you want to save it? Don't you want to? No, like that's what's important. Like the value of appearance. Like that's important. They wear their nice clothes out. Personal space. This is a big one. Like I was riding the bus the other day. I was touching 5 different people at one time. I was not okay with that. That's not okay. They're very much more touchy. We went over to the Edge house, and the Edge guys, their church, their pastor and his wife were over. Probably mid-50s. I don't know how old they are. I was sitting on a couch. She sat down beside me, and she would touch my arm to talk to me. Okay, good. I don't even know her. I was not okay with this. And I was, oh, okay. Yep, this is all right. Okay. But their personal bubble and personal space is different. Thomas and Mikhail, could you guys stand up, face each other, and tell me about what distance would you guys stand to have just a casual conversation? About something like that? Okay. Take 1 step closer, each of you, and look at each other. How does that feel? Does that feel okay? Or, I mean, you guys are friends, but a little close. Okay, yeah, thanks. You can sit back down. Sometimes you kind of take a step back, and they'll take a step forward, and you take a step back. And it's different. It's not wrong, right? I mean, sometimes you can smell their breath, and that's wrong, but it's just different. Their personal space. Lines look sometimes like that on the right, and here we go. Personal space. Still getting used to that one as well. Extra tip, if you ever come to Columbia, one of the worst things you can do is slam someone's door. It's basically like giving them the finger. They think you're mad. You have to be really careful. It takes practice, really. I have a friend from church. He's visited the States already. He's like, he doesn't get it. They slam their doors and walk away happy, and it makes no sense to him. So that's a little practical thing. And I'm going to end with this. Gospel transcends culture. When we present the gospel, we don't change the gospel. Love, whether you speak Spanish or Portuguese or any other language or not, love actually transcends that. Love actually transcends race, culture, location. The gospel transcends culture. Now, we have an example when Paul, he was in Athens. I'm not going to read all this, but basically, he was there. He was troubled by all the statues and the altars and everything that he saw. And yeah, he said, "Men of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious." He didn't change the gospel when he preached it in Athens, but he did look around. He did recognize what's parts of their culture. What can I use to present the gospel to them? He used, well, there in verse 23, he saw an altar with this inscription, "To the unknown God. What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you." So we have a word, we call it the word contextualization, the process of viewing something in its context, in its place, basically like a starting point. Paul used their starting point, where they were, to bring the gospel to them. He didn't change it. He didn't say, "Yeah, you can worship this guy." He said, "Look, I'm here to proclaim to you the unknown God." He used their culture as a starting point. He went on to, he used, who was it? He used some of the Greek poems, the different famous poems. He actually quoted a little bit of that to pull in their culture to make it more understandable. So we don't change the gospel, but we do make it understandable. If you come up to someone in South America and you start telling them the gospel, and you don't even say good morning first, you don't value them, you don't ask about their family, they're probably going to be pretty closed to what you have, because you're not actually valuing them, you're just kind of talking at them, right? So we don't change it, but we take where they are, and out of that, we preach the gospel to them, because the gospel is powerful. The gospel transcends anything, any cultural differences. It does. We don't have to teach them our culture. We don't have to change their culture in order for them to hear about Jesus Christ and know that He's the only way. So we don't change it, but we use where they're at, right? Lastly, the best way to make your service ineffective is to act as if your culture is superior to another. Kind of wrapping this up here a little bit. I was in India with a guy. We were hopping along in a SUV. We had an Indian driver, and we were hitting some big potholes. And well, no offense, but you guys think we think our potholes are bad. But anyways, we were hitting some potholes, and he's like, "Dude, your roads here are terrible. We never have roads like this in the States." While maybe it was true, but him acting like my culture, my country is better than yours, it really closed off any kind of communication, any kind of value that we had for someone else's culture, for someone else. Best way to make your service ineffective is to enter a new culture and act as if your culture is superior. Not wrong, but different. So, how do we engage? How do we reach new cultures? Become curious. Become learners. When you can look around like Paul did and see this, maybe it's beauty, maybe it's depravity, but when we're curious, we're learners, we can engage in culture that way. We can effectively engage them with the gospel. So, not wrong, different, just be curious. Sometimes it's just funny. That's all I have. I guess I'll turn the time over to Weston or, okay. Pardon? Okay.
Thank you so much, Chris, for that. The phrase that I think we won't forget, I won't forget, is